viewers, thank you for tuning into Startup Storytime. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, startup founder coach, podcast host, and co-host of the popular monthly pitch event in Boston called Founders Live. I provide urgent care clinic services for startup founders. Yes, I take emergency calls and I charge by the minute, and I help founders restore their businesses back to a healthy condition and their mindsets back to a healthy condition. Now, as a new business owner, do you find yourself falling back into an employee mentality, or perhaps you're comparing yourself to other founders and end up feeling like an imposter? Or maybe you are so overwhelmed by the entrepreneurial journey, you're thinking about throwing the towel in. Well, our guest, Krista Mollion, is on a mission to create a global movement to help people overcome burnout, to find balance and eliminate uncertainty, fear, and doubt, and step more fully into their potential. After almost 20 years working in the corporate world, Krista became a startup founder when she launched the SASSY Method, a life coaching practice for bosses who want to live a more balanced, fulfilling life. And she's the founder of Your Product CEO, a B2B consulting company for product management and product marketing. I'm so excited to learn more about this extraordinary startup founder. Hey, Krista, welcome to Startup Storytime.
Hey, Ande, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh, it's just so great to have you here. And we're going to be bouncing back and forth on this Zoom recording here today. And I'm curious. Tell us how you got launched in becoming an entrepreneur. And folks, just a quick sidebar, I met Krista at the recent 2019 Inbound event. And wow, out of 20,000 plus attendees, just meet somebody new again and again. We were attending a lot of the same events there and sessions. I really was drawn into her wonderful energy, and I just found her so compelling. And I asked her and invited her to be on the show, and she said yes. So I feel so thrilled to have her here. So Krista, tell us about how you became an entrepreneur. You know, what happened? How did this all come about for you?
So, Ande, I actually always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur or a freelancer or a solopreneur, however you want to call it. I just knew that I marched to my own drum. And my first years were mostly just forming myself by being in corporate environment to learn the ropes and learn what it takes inside of a business. So I highly advise people to at least start off in a corporate environment, because you're going to learn how things work from the inside. And who knows, later on, those corporations might become your clients if you're doing consulting. And so you definitely want to understand from an insider perspective how it works. So, however, I always knew I was going to eventually have my own business. And I actually started my own LLC at age 23, and I started billing companies as a consultant, doing translation, doing quality assurance, because I, if you haven't guessed, am in the Silicon Valley, San Francisco region, where tech is king. So I had more than enough B2B clients all over the Bay. Just within like a 50-mile radius, if you drive around Silicon Valley, you're going to see all the well-known big guys, all the big companies. And so I aimed high. I went to the very top. I didn't start off with small companies. I went directly to the biggest companies that I could find, and was very persistent. So I think one of the biggest skills I learned becoming an entrepreneur was not to be shy. And that's something I help new entrepreneurs with right now, is self-confidence, because you are actually always selling something. Even if you're in corporate, you're still selling yourself. Like you said at Inbound, there's an energy exchange happening that makes you say, hey, I want to actually talk more with this person, maybe even collaborate with them. So that's how I got started very, very young. But, and here's the key, is you have to have a stable income. So I had 1 foot in corporate and 1 foot moonlighting for most of my 20s. And then I took the plunge of starting my own agency with 2 partners when I was 28.
Wow.
And so for 12 years, I built and ran an agency that we grew from nothing, from bootstrapped into 4 offices with 80 employees.
Oh my
And
gosh.
we hit 8 figures. And so it was an overwhelming journey. I had no idea how quickly we would be successful, but we were. And we were able to bypass all the other established agencies because we niched down. And that's a second tip I'll give to your audience is when you're trying to take over the giants, David versus Goliath, if anyone knows that old tale, you really want to figure out what your niche should be. And our niche happened to be virtual reality. And this was in the early 2000s when virtual reality was still quite specialized and unknown. It's become more and more popular now. But all these big agencies that were servicing these big companies were doing paid advertising, content creation, some video, but nobody was doing VR. So we were able to really secure these huge company deals without any competition. So these agencies were like, okay, who are you? We never heard of you, but yet you're getting the deals that we're getting only because we had that niche that they could not touch us. We were so good at that, and that's all we did. So that's my second tip for your audience is, moonlight, don't just jump. And second of all, niche down. Niche down can take you to 8 figures very quickly.
These tips are phenomenal. And I agree with you in getting your feet wet in corporate. You can learn so much about systems and procedures by jumping in. And I remember hearing on Guy Raz's How I Built It episode
Oh, I love
about the
that show.
Squarespace guy. So when he launched Squarespace, he readily admits he was in college. He never knew anything or had even seen what hiring and firing looked like. He didn't know anything about making, quote, good decisions, about partnering with people. There were so many things that he hadn't learned. So there is a lot to learn by the big wheels turning slowly in corporate, but you learn some really important, even reporting and communication skills and things like that. You don't want to keep some of the bad stuff that won't work in a small business, but I love that. And I also love the tip about niching down, and you do that with your virtual reality. But Krista, you also had to prove your value proposition. You had to help people understand, when you launched, you had a theory that you were going to provide such and such a service to such and such a customer. How did you prove that? What challenges did you have, and did that pivot over the period of time with your agency? And then we'll talk about what you're doing now and how that's working.
Yes. So value proposition is everything. And I think that a lot of people try to dream about having a business for money. And that's exactly the worst reason that you should get into business. Because if you want me to help you go into $500,000 debt in 24 hours, I can do that. Because it's so easy to just go out there and take a loan. You can even mortgage your house if you're crazy enough and you're like, there's lendertree.com. There's all these places that are willing to give you loans, and you can lose the money almost instantly. So when people come to me and they talk about money right away, like I want to be rich or I need this money to invest in my idea, I really highly believe that you shouldn't think about money first. You should think about your value prop. So what problem are you solving? And what is the return on investment that compels me to say your value prop is the one I'm going to go with? How big is that return on investment? Is it a nice to have? Is it a maybe people will go for it? Or is it something that is going to be disrupting the industry that, all your competitors are going to fall down because they've never seen something that cool? And so for me, VR was that. It was an easy sell because every potential business owner needs to understand the root of your value prop will always be emotional, right? Because if you look at the Maslow pyramid of needs, you're looking at where would my business prop fit in there? Is it a necessity, like a shelter issue? Am I solving like a major world problem? Or is it something that's going to draw people in emotionally? And so when I'm thinking value prop, I'm thinking, look at that Maslow pyramid and say, okay, where is my product or service fit in? And then exploit that with all the emotional if it's like you're doing housing, talk about the comfort of having your home. Talk about the pride of home ownership. Talk about the you know the feeling of decorating your house and how exciting that can be, right? Or talk about having children and building roots. So those are all emotional ways of talking about wherever your value prop is. And that's what I did with my agency that closed the deal, was I really made them feel that if they hired us and we did this VR for them, that all the paid advertising, all the commercial videos would be blown away by our VR. So that they would just leave all their competitors in the dust, and all the customers they would remember what we did for them. And so that emotional, so whatever you're selling, make sure that you're worried about the value prop before the money, because the money will follow, not the other way around. Unless you're manufacturing something. Like if you came to me and you said, I'm a rocket scientist and I need $20 million investment to build my rocket, then I would believe that the money should come first. But beyond that, I think you should always start with your value prop and make sure it's emotional driven, because that's what customers want.
Yeah.
So
it's called your secret sauce, everybody. It's what differentiates you from everyone else and makes them want to go with you. And Krista's absolutely right. Real branding is understanding that customers are doing an emotional buy, and it's really 90% of their decision. They like the 10% for the logic to back up that they feel great. And I actually say this, Krista, regarding angel investors as well, not VCs. They're very cut and dry, very logical in how they invest in a team. But angels, same thing. If you're pitching to angel investors, make sure you're making that emotional connection so that they really get who you are as a founder. And that way it'll make their buying decision, i.e. investment decision, better. But to bring it back to the customer and the niche that Krista was just talking about, it's so important that you really understand what your brand promise is with your customers, so that you're continually communicating and delivering them the customer experience that they want. And again, validating the reason why they chose to use you and not someone else. So how are you doing this with the SASSY Method? Because you've got some, and your product company. I mean, you really have done some wonderful things currently as well, Krista.
Well, it was a big transition. In 2017, I sold my shares in my VR agency and I became a solopreneur. And believe it or not, I actually thought in the beginning I would just go back to corporate and get this amazing VP job or some like amazing job in a big tech company. And
what did you find, Krista?
Oh, no. What I found is that I have entrepreneur like branded into my head. And so every time I would interview, there would be this awkward silence. And they were like, why would you ever want to work for us? That was the question I kept getting. Or one guy took me aside and said, you'll be bored here. Like, I don't want to break this to you. I don't know how to say this. And I was like, no, I won't. I'll disrupt things. And he's like, that's not how it works around here. We don't disrupt things around here. We're like dinosaurs. This person working at the company telling me this. So what I realized was, okay, that's not going to happen. And so instead I became a solopreneur, and it was a natural transition to start something like the SASSY Method, because over the past 15 years of my career, I've always loved mentoring younger people, millennials. And I've been very good at managing millennials because I have a very high EQ. So if you ask me what is my superpower, I'd probably say adaptability. But with that adaptability, it means I can adapt not only to different market surges and environments, but I can also adapt to people's personalities. I've worked with teams remotely for most of my career. I've built teams remotely for most of my career. So I know how to connect with people even at a distance. And I do quite a bit of traveling where even for a short time, you can make oodles of very deep connections with your team. So just like 2 business days with a group of people, and I feel like I've known them for years. I connect with people almost instantly in a deep way. So that's what I've been doing with the SASSY Method is really, I've designed a curriculum for people who lack self-confidence in business And it's a step-by-step program that's a 12 to 27 week program that hopefully after you've completed the program, you'll come out with a lot more grounded balance. And this will avoid burnout, because that's what I did as a workaholic, which a lot of entrepreneurs do. Is in my early 30s, I was working like, easily like 60, 70 hours a week. I had my phone glued to my ear at all time. Oh my goodness, a customer might need me, or the team might have a question. So there was chats going on.
Oh,
I
yeah,
was a
all or nothing,
multitasker.
pedal, pedal to the metal, all of that.
And the truth is that you can't get mental clarity. And that's number one. And number two, you need to work on your business, not in your business. And as a new entrepreneur, your first instinct is, I know how to do this really, really well, and to try to be involved in every little thing that's happening. And what's the result? You can't be everywhere at once. You as a founder need to step back and learn how to lead. And that's so important. And what is leadership? Leadership doesn't mean that you're really good at something and you were so good that you were able to raise capital and start a company. Leadership means you have to figure out, am I a good leader or am I not? And if I'm not, I need to hire an operations officer, and I need to give up that power and be like, I admit that I'm not really good with HR. I'm not a natural leader in terms of people management. So you can have idea leadership and thought leadership without having human capital leadership. And entrepreneurs struggle a lot, especially the smaller ones. They don't know how to manage people, especially the tech ones. They're introverted, so they have a double problem that they're like, oh my goodness, I'll hide in my office and work like 80 hours a week. But if someone knocks at the door, I'm like, what do you need? So this is something that I've come to realize is so important for companies.
Right.
So I help people in my program learn those kind of things. Yeah.
And your awesome sauce is the empathy. So that's really important. And to also address what you were saying too about the leadership and understanding what you're good at, but also understanding what burnout looks like. And we have so many mythologies with entrepreneurship about it all being, burn the ships and do this and give up everything. No, and I, having been a .bomb owner back in 98 to 2001, I have a deep understanding of this. And I remember as a mom of two young children, I had I started the business nursing the 6-month-old and chasing after the 3-year-old. And I was hiring a lot of 26-year-olds and 27 and 22-year-olds. And I was looking around at many of the other .coms at the time and thinking, this type of sleeping at the business, which I really noticed it was mostly young men, is unsustainable. There's no way you can have a life, and there's no way you can stay emotionally and physically healthy under this type of culture. And I got interviewed by Wired magazine, and it was the thing I focused on the whole time. It's just unsustainable, and we see so much nowadays talking about how entrepreneurship is actually mentally, psychologically harming the founders because of these mythologies and because of not having any boundaries with your business, because as much as you're there to serve your business is there to serve you. So, Krista, I'm thinking that, your awesome sauce with the SASSY Method is bringing a deeper awareness to entrepreneurs and helping them set up the systems and procedures in their life, right? Yay.
Absolutely. I hope that that's the case. At least I try my hardest, because I feel like I owe it back to the business community after going through it myself and knowing what burnout looks like, to identify the signs and symptoms, and most importantly, to prevent it. The more I can educate new entrepreneurs what burnout looks like and how to avoid it, the better that they can become balanced entrepreneurs. And what you were saying about single young men, I mean, the worst thing is to be married to an entrepreneur. If you're a non-entrepreneur and you're married, I think we need a dating hotline or some kind of like entrepreneur love line, because if you know what I'm talking about, you're like, honey, 5 more minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to cancel date night tonight. there's a big red flag or a big fire I have to put out at work, and
Here's
or
my favorite,
I'm too
Krista.
tired.
My favorite is, hey, if you're not part of the solution, get out of the way. I wrote a whole article about when your loved one isn't an entrepreneur, and you're bringing up such a valuable point. Krista, what does burnout look like?
Burnout is really the point where your mind won't shut off, and you've gone past multitasking, that your brain is just constantly on a hamster wheel. It's spinning so badly that you're going to start suffering at night, that you're not going to have restful sleep. You're going to actually be thinking during the night, and you'll be conscious of that. When you wake up in the morning, you're like, wow, I didn't sleep very well, and I had all these thoughts. So it's like your brain just keeps working. So literally, you get no rest around the clock. The second symptom would probably be your mental state, where you notice that you have too short patience. You have a short fuse for everyone around you, and you let little things really upset you more than they should, because you're just rattled to the core. You're so anxious. You're carrying around so much anxiety and stress that every little thing just rubs you the wrong way. It's like you don't have any buffer left, because you've worn yourself so thin. It's like a tire that you kept rolling on, and you didn't do the maintenance check, and then they said, well, the tires, you have to change them every 40,000 miles or whatever, right? And you're like, no, I'll just keep going. What happens sooner or later? So it's the same with you as a human being. And the last thing is physically. So sooner or later, even those young single men will wear themselves down. So I've seen men who went early balding, who had heart attacks even. I mean, stress is a killer. So it goes from mental, and then sooner or later it carries to your physical well-being. Because I said you don't sleep. So insomnia or just not restful sleep is a big symptom of burnout. Well, and yeah, there's so much going on with burnout.
And for those folks who follow Gary Vee, he's very clear. I mean, he has all the things set up in his life to support what he does, and he turns it off. He goes home, he gets a good 7 or 8 hours of sleep a night. He's able to leave it behind. So we sometimes look at influencers like a Gary Vee and think, oh, that's how we're supposed to be. But we're the ones who have misunderstood, based on seeing all the content, seeing how they hustle all the time, etc. So you bootstrapped your first business, and it sounds like you're bootstrapping this one, but you do hope to scale. How do you want to grow that? Or are you looking for balance yourself in life and coaching and providing wonderful services and programs for folks, so that perhaps maybe you'll be earning money while you're taking a nice hike?
Right. So let's put it this way. In every business model, you should start with the end in mind. So when I coach people, young entrepreneurs, I say the first thing, and when I say young, by the way, I don't mean your physical age. I mean like a new entrepreneur. So I should correct that. I've had young 55-year-old entrepreneurs. I'm like, there's a young entrepreneur over there. So it means new to me. I think that you need to think, well, what is my exit strategy? What is my legacy that I'm trying to build with this business? So in your value prop, you're like, I've got this amazing idea. I've done my competitive research. I know I can provide a value that no one else is providing right now. I'm so excited to try to offer this service or product. But what is your end goal? So do you want to patent this and later sell it to a bigger company? Do you want to, there's so many different directions, but that's the first question I ask. So after they tell me their great business idea, I'm like, okay, so what do you want to do with this? And one of the ways of doing that is to imagine, how do you want to live? And so you went back to taking a hike. That's an excellent thing, because I say, so do you want to sit in the office for every single day, and then even on weekends not spend quality time with your family because you need to hustle and you're afraid the client might go somewhere else? Or do you want to get to a point where you can actually have a normal office day? Like Sheryl Sandberg, I think she said, I leave and go have dinner with my 2 girls at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And I won't be guilted for that, even though she's running one of the biggest companies in the world, right? So that's what I like to talk to people about. And one of the keys to doing that, well, there's two keys I find to really making this reality, because we can talk all the day, oh, and you see entrepreneurs always on paid ads, they're like, look at my lifestyle, I'm at the beach and I'm a billionaire, and what do? We roll our eyes and we say, snake oil, this can't be true, right?
Right.
So, but it is true if you follow two things. You hire people smarter than yourself, and you're willing to pay them real money. So you're not just like trying to take all the money for yourself and then hire people who aren't competent to do damage control for you. So you really handpick a good team of people, and that means controlling your ego.
Right.
You have to admit what we talked about earlier, what you are good at, where's your superpower, and where you're not that good at. And then you have to take those things you're not really good at, and you have to hire the right people. And so that's part of my program, is teaching people how to recognize their strengths and their weaknesses, overcome their ego, take it down a notch, be really brutally honest with themselves, and then figure out what are the ways to hire the right people. So I help people do that. And then I help people learn how to manage other people if they haven't done it before. And it's also different to manage people when it's your own money on the line than if you were in a corporate environment with a direct report. So, payroll is brutal. So you definitely want to make sure you're getting your money's worth. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like, I'll do it all myself. That leads to burnout, right?
I think, Krista, it sounds like what you also do is you help the new business owner let go of their old employee mindset and become an owner, which is not an easy transition, right?
No. And I think the second thing, besides hiring the right people and learning to delegate, learning to manage, learning to let go and not micromanage them, but give them the right direction, that's really hard. So that's a whole process, is automation. So the second big key that I see of business owners who are really successful is learning how to make money while we sleep. And especially if it's a lot of direct services, we tend to think, well, no, my hours are billable, but when I'm not working, I'm not making money, which isn't true. So there's so many important ways of building an empire. And that's the second big component that I try to teach people, is how to eventually automate what you're doing. I like to say bottle your secret sauce, right? Because it's like you're doing this one-on-one for people. How can we bottle it up, and how can we automate that? Can you write books? Can you do a podcast where you can eventually reach millions, like have a show. So you do it one hour a week or 2 hours a week maximum, and millions of viewers can keep learning about your secret sauce. In your book, the same thing. So the sky's the limit, but it's happening while you're sleeping, right? And learning how to monetize off those things. And then of course, online courses. There's subscription models. You can put together an amazing, firewall protected, tons of loaded content that can just help people do anything they've dreamed of, put it behind a firewall and charge a subscription fee. So there's all these different ways of automating what you do. And if you want to relax and have great weekends, eventually you're going to have to do those two things: hire people and learn to automate.
Right.
Right.
Are we getting the best advice from Krista today, everybody? I love this. And I know you're going to be reaching out to her. Krista, let us know how we can support you in your business, because it takes a village to raise a company, a business, and you need everybody. We all need support. I know this community loves to reach out and help and add wind to a sail. How can we support you in your beautiful business?
Well, this is great timing, because I am going to be releasing my book, The SASSY Method. And I decided to write a book which is giving away my best secrets in a condensed form, obviously. But I feel that every business owner deserves that kind of a book. And so how people can support me right now is by signing up for my newsletter, because my newsletter will have all the details of my book launch. And I'm also planning to do a book tour. So you'll be able to get news if I come to a city near you. We can talk about that offline, Andy. But once it's so far, I'd like to do, I'm going to be doing a book tour, and I'd like to visit several major cities. Right now, I'm just looking at USA, but eventually maybe Australia, and eventually Europe. So I really want to take this worldwide. so that people can avoid burnout. And so this is like the book that I hope that all of you will purchase for your friend who's just starting out their business, or even just starting out a side hustle but eventually wants to take it full time, because it's going to be full of tips for preventative measures, what not to do. And this can eventually lead to millions of dollars of savings, because people make the worst business mistakes. So I've been there, I've done that, and I want to help you not do that. So
Yay. I love that. And folks, I'll have all the links, especially on how to sign up for the newsletter that Krista was talking about, in the show notes. So we're wrapping up everything right now. We've had a great time talking about story time. And if you want to have me interview you about your story, please reach out to me, Ande at andelyons.com. I'll have the link in the show notes. And to receive an alert whenever I post a new video, please click on the subscribe button and click the bell icon. And also subscribe to my bi-monthly newsletter called Let's Stick Together. It's a very quick and easy, delicious, filled with my Andelicious advice for entrepreneurs and for startup founders. And do you need a pitch deck review? Because I've raised millions from VCs and thousands from angels, and I'm a co-host of the monthly pitch event right here in Boston, so I can make sure that your deck is ready for investors or for a pitch event. Is your business suffering from a variety of ailments? Let's get you in for an urgent care clinic appointment for startup founders. You can schedule an emergency call with me by the minute, and I'll help you restore your business and your state of mind to a healthy condition. All the links are in the show notes. Hey, Krista, I got to tell you, I am so thrilled that you got in here with me today and shared your deliciousness with everybody. Thank you.
thank you for having me, Ande.
Okay. All right, folks. You know the drill here. You're a superstar. Okay. You've got this. And if you need any help, Krista and I are here to help you get through it all. So until next time, I'm wishing you a delicious day. Mwah, and cheers to all.